Hey guys, and welcome back to our first episode here on A Novel Escape. And I am so excited to be reading with you guys for the first time. And the first book that I've chosen is not a newer bestseller. It is a bestseller though, but it's not one of the newer ones. And it has been on my list, and I'm quite ashamed of how long this book has been on my list. And I don't know why I kept pushing it down instead of just reading it. I don't know. But this book's been pretty popular for about 3 years now. And it is now a series on Prime Video. So, with it being an original series, I have to watch it. But I won't watch a book until I've read, or I won't watch a book. Jesus. I will not watch a movie until I have read the book. Same with shows. So, I have to do my homework because I feel like anytime I read a book compared to a movie or a show, there's so many little pieces and little details that aren't included in the movie or the show because they're trying to put everything in such a small amount of time compared to the amount it would take to read a book. So a lot of things get left out. So that's why I feel like your imagination is so much more evolved when you're reading. So that's why I chose to go with Daisy Jones and the Six. We're going to start with this one, you guys. Like I said, it is available as an original series right now on Amazon Prime. So if you don't want to waste time waiting for me to read you the story, or you don't want to go get the book, go ahead and watch it. If you have already read this book, please leave your reviews. Give me your thoughts, please, in the comments. So let's get started. All right. So Daisy Jones and the Six is written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you don't know who she is also the author of Evelyn Hugo's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And if you have not read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I highly recommend that the women run out and get that one. I can do a review on that book if you guys would like, but I am not going to read it again. It is not one of my absolute favorites that is on my list of books I would read again, or I wished I could read again for the first time. But the book itself was pretty clever. She takes you to this world of 50s, 60s when Evelyn Hugo is at the top of Hollywood. She's living this luxurious lifestyle. She is the it girl of her century, and she has no lack of love in her life. That is for sure. Seven husbands and a little plot twist there. So it takes you into another timeline where you get to experience a life that we didn't, and experience a different kind of lifestyle. So I highly suggest it. She is also the same author of Malibu Rising, which I have not read yet, but it is on our list of books to finish this month. Because Malibu Rising, I have seen so many rad reviews that it's on my list. So I will be sharing that one with you guys as well. But we're going to start with Daisy Jones and the Six so that we can watch the videos on Amazon Prime. All right, so I'm going to start with the author's notes. I want to see what Taylor Jenkins Reid has to say about this book. Usually, if you read the author's notes, you kind of get a idea of what the book is going to be. So I'll give you my thoughts as we go along. All right. Daisy Jones was born in 1951 and grew up in the Hollywood Hills of Los Angeles, California. The daughter of Frank Jones, the well-known British painter, and Janine Lefebvre, French model. Daisy started to make a name for herself in the late 60s as a young teenager on the Sunset Strip. Elaine Chang. So this is going to be in interviews, so I'll just give you who is the interviewee and what they have to say to make it as easy as possible. Elaine Chang, this is what she has to say. She's the biographer, author of Daisy Jones' Wildflower. Here's what's so captivating about Daisy Jones, even before she was Daisy Jones. You've got a rich white girl growing up in LA. She's gorgeous, even as a child. She has these stunning big blue eyes, dark cobalt blue. One of my favorite anecdotes about her is that in the 80s, a colored contact company actually created a shade called Daisy Blue. She's got copper red hair that is thick and wavy and takes up so much space. Um, so we're looking at the 70s, into the 70s, early 80s, as the Daisy and the Six are coming up. So that would make sense with the big hair. And then her cheekbones almost seem swollen. That's how defined they are. And she's got an incredible voice that she doesn't cultivate, never takes a lesson. She's born with all the money in the world, access to whatever she wants, artists, drugs, clubs, anything and everything at her disposal. But she has no one, no siblings, no extended family in Los Angeles, two parents who are so into their own world they are all but indifferent to her existence. Although they never shy away from making her pose for their artist friends, that's why there are so many paintings and photos of Daisy as a child. The artist that came into that home saw Daisy Jones, saw how gorgeous she was, and wanted to capture her. It's telling that there is no Frank Jones piece of Daisy. Mm. Her father didn't paint her, but he's a French artist or a British painter. That's weird. Her father is too busy with his male nudes to pay much attention to his daughter. Well, that explains that. And in general, Daisy spends her childhood rather alone. But she's actually a very gregarious, outgoing kid. Daisy would often ask to get her hair cut just because she loved her hairdresser. She would ask neighbors if she could walk their dogs. There was even a family joke about the time Daisy tried to bake birthday cake for the mailman. So this is a girl that desperately wants to connect, but there's no one in her life who is truly interested in who she is, especially not her parents. So sad. And it really breaks my heart. But it is also how she grows up to become an icon. We love broken, beautiful people, and it doesn't get much more obviously broken and more classically beautiful than Daisy Jones. So it makes sense that Daisy starts to find herself on the Sunset Strip, this glamorous, seedy place. Daisy Jones. So this is going to be from Daisy's point of view. Singer Daisy Jones and the Six. I could walk down to the strip from my house. I was about 14, sick of being stuck in the house, just looking for something to do. I wasn't old enough to get into any of the bars and clubs, but I went anyways. I remember bumming a cigarette off of a roadie for the birds when I was pretty young. I learned quickly that people thought you were older if you didn't wear a bra. I I've not heard that. And sometimes I'd wear a bandana headband like the cool girls had on. I wanted to fit in with the groupies on the sidewalk with their joints and their flask and all of that. Well, Daisy, that's not my goals there, girlfriend. So I bummed a cigarette from the roadie outside the Whiskey A Go Go one night, the first time I'd ever had one, and I tried to pretend I did it all the time. I held the cough in my throat and what have you, and I was flirting with him the best I could. I'm embarrassed to think about it now, how clumsy I probably was. But eventually, some guy comes up to the roadie and says, "Hey, we got to get inside and up the amps." And he turns to me and he says, "You coming?" And that's how I snuck into the whiskey for the first time. I stayed out that night with until 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd never done anything like that before, but suddenly it was like I existed. I was a part of something. I went from 0 to 60 that night. I was drinking and smoking anything anybody would give. When I got home, I walked in through the front door drunk and stoned and crashed in my bed, and I'm pretty sure my parents never even noticed I was gone. I got up, went out the next night, did the same thing. Eventually, the bouncers on the strip recognized me and let me in wherever I was going. The Whiskey London Fog, the Riot House, no one cared how young I was. Now, this is Greg McKinnis, former concierge, the Continental Hyatt House. Ooh. Oh man, I don't know how long Daisy was hanging around the Hyatt House before I noticed her. I remember the first time I saw her. I was on the phone and in walks this crazy tall, crazy skinny girl with these bangs and the biggest, roundest blue eyes you ever saw in your life, man.
She also had this smile, huge smile. She came in on the arm of some guy. I don't remember who. A lot of the girls around the strip back then, I mean, they were young, but they tried to seem older. And Daisy just was, though. Didn't seem like she was trying to be anything except for self. After that, I noticed she was at the hotel a lot. She was always laughing. There was nothing jaded about her, at least when I knew her. It was like watching Bambi learn how to walk. She was real naive and real vulnerable, but you could tell there was something about her. I was nervous for her, tell you the truth. There were so many men in the scene that were into young girls, 30 something rock stars sleeping with teenagers. Not saying it was okay, just saying that's how it was. How old was Lori Maddox when she was with Jimmy Page? 14? And Iggy Pop and Sable Star? He sang about it, man. He was bragging about it. When it came to Daisy, I mean, the singers, the guitarists, the roadies, everybody was looking at her. Whenever I saw her, though, I tried to make sure she was doing all right. Kept tabs on her here and there. I really liked her. She was just cooler than anything else happening around her. Back to Daisy. I learned about sex and love the hard way. That men will take what they want and feel no debt. That some people only want one piece of you. Now, I do think there were girls, the plaster casters, some of the GTOs, maybe they weren't being taken advantage of. I don't know. But it was bad. It was a bad scene for me at first. I lost my virginity to somebody that it doesn't even matter who it was. He was older, he was a drummer. We were in the lobby of the Riot House and he invited me upstairs to do some lines. He said if he said I was the girl of his dreams. I was drawn to him, mainly because he was drawn to me. I wanted someone to single me out and as something special. I was just so desperate to hold someone's interest. Before I knew it, we were on his bed, and he asked me if I knew what I was doing, and I said yes, even though the answer was no. But everyone always talked about free love and how sex was a good thing. If you were cool, if you were hip, you liked sex. And I stared at the ceiling the whole time, waiting for him to be done. I knew I was supposed to be moving around, but I stayed perfectly still, scared to move. All you could hear in the room was the sound of our clothes rubbing up against the bedspread. Bless your heart. I had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing things I knew I didn't want to be doing. But I've had a lot of therapy in my life now. And I mean a lot of therapy. And I see it now, see myself clearly. I wanted to be around these men, these stars, because I didn't know how else to be important. And I figured I had to please them if I wanted to stay. When he was done, he got up and I pulled my dress down and he said, if you want, you can go back downstairs to your friends. That's all right. I really didn't have any friends, but I knew he meant I needed to leave. So I did. He never talked to me again. Simone Jackson, disco star. This is what they have to say. I remember seeing Daisy on the dance floor one night at the whiskey. Everybody saw her. Her eye went right to her. Oh, your eye went right to her. I'm sorry. If the rest of the world was silver, Daisy was gold. This comes from Daisy. Simone was my best friend. This comes from Simone. I brought Daisy out with me everywhere. I never had a sister. I remember it was the Sunset Strip riot when all of us went down to Pandora's and protested the curfew and the cops. Daisy and I went out, protested, met up with some actors, and went to Barney's Beanery to keep partying. After that, we went back to somebody's place. Daisy passed out on the guy's patio. We didn't go home until the next afternoon. She was maybe 15. I was probably 19. I just kept thinking, doesn't anybody care about this girl but me? And by the way, we were all on speed back then. Even Daisy, as young as she was. But if you wanted to stay skinny and be up all night, you were taking something. Mostly beanies or black beauties. Can somebody in the comments tell me what beanies or black beauties are? Thank you. All right, going back to Daisy again. Diet pills were an easy choice. Oh, maybe I don't need it in the comments. I think I just put two and two together. Were an easy choice. It didn't even feel like a choice. It didn't even feel like you were getting high at first. Coke, too. If it was around, you took a bump. People didn't even consider it an addiction. It wasn't like that. Back to Simone. My producer bought me a place in Laurel Canyon. He wanted to sleep with me, and I told him no, and he bought it for me anyway. I had Daisy move in. We ended up sharing a bed for 6 months. So I can tell you firsthand that that girl never slept. I'd be trying to fall asleep at 4 in the morning, and Daisy would want the light on so she could read. Back to Daisy. I had pretty bad insomnia for a long time. Even when I was a kid, I'd be up at 11 o'clock saying I wasn't tired, and my parents would always yell at me, just go to sleep. So in the middle of the night, I was always looking for quiet things to do, and my mom had these romance novels hanging around, so I would read those. I hear you, girl. Smart girl. It would be 2 in the morning, and my parents would be having a party downstairs, and I'd be sitting on my bed with my lamp on, reading Dr. Zhivago or Peyton Place. And then it just became habit. I would read anything that was around. I wasn't picky. Thrillers, detective novels, sci-fi. Around the time I moved in with Simone, I found a box of history biographies on the side of the road one day up in Beechwood Canyon. I tore through those in no time. She likes to read. Simone says, I'll tell you, she's the entire reason I started wearing a sleeping mask. But then I kept doing it because I looked chic. Back to Daisy. I was living with Simone for 2 weeks before I went home to get more clothes. My dad said, did you break the coffee maker this morning? I said, Dad, I don't even live here. Simone says, I told her the one condition of living with me was that she had to go to school. Daisy says, high school was not easy for me. I knew that that to get an A, you had to do what you were told. But I also knew that a lot of what we were being told was bullshit. I remember one time I was assigned an essay on how Columbus discovered America. And so I wrote a paper about how Columbus did not discover America. Because he didn't. But then I got an F. I said to my teacher, but I'm right. And she said, but you didn't follow the assignments. Simone says she was so bright and her teachers didn't seem to really recognize that. Daisy says, people always say I didn't graduate high school, but I did. When I walked across that stage to get my diploma, Simone was cheering for me. She was so proud of me, and I started to feel proud of myself too. That night, I took the diploma out of its case and I folded it up and I used it like a bookmark in my copy of Valley of the Dolls. Simone says, when my first album flopped, my record label dropped me. My producer kicked us out of the place. I got a job waiting tables and moved in with my cousin in Lemert Park. Daisy had to move back in with her parents. Daisy said, I just packed up my stuff from Simone's and drove it right back to my parents' place. When I walked in the front door, my mom was on the phone smoking a cigarette. I said, hey, I'm back. She said, we got a new couch. And then just kept on talking on the phone. Simone says, Daisy got all of her beauty from her mother. Janine was gorgeous. I remember I met her a few times back then. Big eyes, very full lips. There was a sensuality to her. And people used to always tell Daisy she looked just like her mother. They did look similar, but I know better than to tell Daisy that. I think one time I said to Daisy, your mother is beautiful. And Daisy said to me, yeah, beautiful and nothing else. Ooh. She got a little fire attitude about her mama there. Daisy says, when we got kicked out of Simone's house, that was the first time I realized that I couldn't just float around living off of other people. I think I was 17 maybe, and it was the first time I'd wondered if I had a purpose. Simone says, sometimes Daisy would be over at my place taking a shower or doing the dishes. I'd hear her sing Janis Joplin or Johnny Cash. She loved singing Mercedes-Benz. She sounded better than anybody else. Where I was trying to get another another record deal, taking voice lessons all the time, really working at it. And Daisy, it was just so easy for her. I wanted to hate her for it, but Daisy's not very easy to hate. Daisy says, one of my favorite memories was Simone and I were driving down La Cienega together, probably in my BMW I had back then. They've got that huge shopping center there now, but back then it was still the record plant. I don't know where we were headed, probably to Jan's to get a sandwich, but we were listening to Tapestry and You've Got a Friend came on. Simone and I were singing so loud along with Carole King, but I was really listening to the lyrics too. I was really feeling it. The song always made me thankful for her, for Simone. There's this peace that comes with knowing you have a person in the world who you should do anything for, that you would do anything for. And she was the first time I ever had that. I got a little bit teary in the car listening to that song. I turned to Simone and I opened my mouth to talk, but she just nodded and said, Me too. Simone says, It was my mission to make Daisy do something with her voice, but Daisy wasn't going to do a single thing she didn't want to do. She'd really come into herself by then, and when I met her, she was still a bit naive, but let's just say she'd gotten tougher. Daisy says, I was seeing a couple of guys back then, included Wyatt Stone of The Breeze. And I didn't feel the same way about him that he felt about me. And this one night we were smoking a joint on the roof of this apartment over on Santa Monica. And Wyatt said, I love you so much. And I don't understand why you don't love me. I said, I love you as much as I'm willing to love anybody. Which was true. I wasn't really willing to be vulnerable with anybody at that point. I had felt too much vulnerability too young. I didn't want to do it anymore. So that night after Wyatt goes to bed, I can't sleep. And I see this piece of paper with this song he's writing, and it's clearly about me. It says something about a redhead and mentioned the hoop earrings that I always wear all the time. And then he had this chorus about me having a big heart but no love in it. I get it. I kept looking at the words thinking this isn't right. He didn't understand me at all. So I thought about it for a little while and I got out a pen and paper and I wrote some things down. When he woke up, I said, Your chorus should be more like big eyes, big soul, big heart, no control. But all she got to give is tiny love. Wyatt grabbed a pen and paper and he said, Say that again? I said, It was just an example. Write your own God song. I can't say that word. Simone says Tiny Love was the Breeze's biggest hit, and Wyatt pretended he wrote the whole thing. Asshole. Wyatt Stone, lead singer, The Breeze. Ooh, we get his point of view. Why are you asking me about this? This is water under the bridge. Who even remembers? Daisy speaks of. It was starting to be a pattern. Once I was having breakfast at Barney's Beanery with a guy, this writer director. Now back then, I always ordered champagne with breakfast. You go, girl. But I was also tired in the morning because I wasn't sleeping enough. So I needed coffee. Of course, I couldn't order just coffee because I'd be too amped up from the pills I was taking. And I couldn't just have the champagne because it would put me to sleep. You understand the problem. So I used to order champagne and coffee together. And other places where servers knew me, I used to call it up and down. Something to keep me up, something to keep me down. Bless her heart. It's sad that I mean, I know this is what they did um in this time era and my God, they're still doing it in this time era, but I don't know nothing about that lifestyle. So I mean, I can imagine it though. Like when I'm in a book and I'm reading these things, I can put myself in this character. It's crazy. Um, so And this guy thought it was hilarious. He said, I'm going to use that in something one day. And he wrote it down on a napkin and put it in his back pocket. I thought to myself, what the hell makes you think I'm not going to use it in something one day? But of course, there it was in his next movie. That's how it was back then. I was just supposed to be the inspiration for some man's great idea. Well, fuck that. That's why I started writing my own stuff. Simone says, I was the only one encouraging her to make something of herself with her talent, and everybody else just tried to make something of themselves with that. And what she said. And Daisy says, I had absolutely no interest in being somebody else's muse. I am not a muse. I am the somebody. End of fucking story.
So I think I'm going to end it with that chapter. That was the first chapter, and it was just a few pages long. The groupie Daisy Jones was the title of that chapter. And the next chapter that we're going to start is going to be The Rise of the Sixth. So I think like after reading through that first chapter and seeing how long the video is, I think I want to end it here, kind of like touch base with what we're feeling at the moment. You guys let me know in the comments. And then in the next video, I'm just going to read through the chapters and then commentary at the end. Try not to make these videos as long. So, first chapter. I like. And I'm very surprised because the first page I was like, this is gonna be boring. But Daisy Jones is savage and I like her. So I'm ready to read more. I like that I thought at first that reading this every other person like and not getting like full details of things was going to be awkward and things wouldn't fall into place. But I will admit, so far I am wrong. Um, so thank you guys for joining me as we read the first chapter. And I will get started on the second video and get it loaded very soon. Until the next time, I will see you guys. Happy reading.